Hello, my friend. Charlie Simons, your host here on Do Not Talk, talking about two things you're never supposed to talk about: religion and politics. And I'm a native Californian, born and raised, grew up down in the Bakersfield area. And I'm just a good old boy. That's it. Don't have a lot of learning. My grandfather always said, son, if you can have horse sense and book learning, called it horse sense, common sense, and book learning, a little bit of both, you'll do all right. So that's kind of me. I don't have a huge education. I don't have a prolific vocabulary. Like how I use prolific there. It's kind of fancy. I don't even know if it actually applies. And I'm watching what's happening down in Southern California. It's been interesting how all of the media just attacked. Oh, LA's on fire. The Palisades, movie stars losing their homes. All very exciting. 24-hour, around the clock coverage. And then things started coming out about what a disaster the people are who's running the show, and how so much of what they have done or not done has made us get to this point. They keep trying to blame climate change. Morons. You sound like children now when you talk like that. Seriously, you do. We have a lot of really stupid people who have put a lot of really stupid people into positions of tremendous power, voting for them just because they have a D after their name. So I haven't really done much about what's going on in SoCal and the massive devastation. And we're getting bailed out again because Biden has pledged to Governor Hairdo, which is what I call our governor, Gavin Newsom, told Governor Hairdo, the United States government, the federal government, will pick up the tab for all the cleanup. We got your back. We got your six, slick. They're talking now that damage, the most devastating and expensive fire in the history of the state of California. And believe me, that's setting a precedent. They're talking about 150 to maybe even $200 billion. Insurance companies canceled policies, fire insurance, just like 2-3 weeks before this happened. What? The reservoir that was built and set aside just so the Palisades area would have plenty of water in just such an emergency was empty. And then Governor Hairdo flat out lied. Said that, oh, everything was full. Everything was the way it was supposed to be. Then he got called on it. Thank God he got called on it by somebody. But they said not full. I noticed that the reporter said, well, actually, the reservoir at Palisades was not full. Not full. You mean empty? Does not full sound a little bit better? Well, it was just kind of slightly down below. It wasn't completely full. No, it was empty. Why don't you say that, media? Strap on a set. So I am bringing you a couple of things that I have found that I think wrap up what's going on in SoCal. And it's so funny watching all the Democrats come out of the woodwork now saying, well, this is not the time for finger pointing. You morons wrote the book on finger pointing. You could have massive casualties from some mass gunman, and you're immediately hitting the podium going, well, that's it. We got to take all your guns away. That's just the way it is. We can't have anybody having guns now. You thrive on chaos. Your own leaders say crap like, never let a good tragedy go to waste. You clowns need to sit down and shut up because the adults are talking. And then there's guys like this. What's he calling himself? It's somebody in Stacy. Oh my goodness. He looks like he's right out of the backwoods of Georgetown up in El Dorado County, which, by the way, I love Georgetown and all my friends in El Dorado County. Check this guy out. The coverage he does about what's happened down in SoCal is fantastic. He's a little funny and hard to look at, but I'll tell you what, he's my new hero.
Right? And by the time we get done with this, you'll be able to draw your own conclusion and then plan accordingly. Everybody knows that California is on fire right now, so let's take a look at the leadership. We have Gavin Newsom, who's been the governor of California for over a decade. I highlighted in the last video that the voters of California even put together a proposition for billions of dollars to help with the water infrastructure and to have more storage capabilities. In the decade that he's been in office, he hasn't done one single thing to advance that program. Also, I will say that Gavin Newsom has bragged about taking 4 dams down in the area that created some hydroelectricity, which a lot of people have been talking about. Also, that Gavin Newsom is diverting the snow melt and watershed from up north, like putting it right into the ocean when he could be bringing it down into the reservoirs. I also highlighted in my last video that Gavin Newsom has been spraying or seed clouding for the last bunch of years. They had 3 of their wettest years on record. They were in a surplus of water, and then for some reason 12 months ago he stopped the program. Well, that seems kind of suspect to me, and it's also how we got here. But I'd also like to bring to your attention that Gavin Newsom was the mayor of San Francisco. A lot of people forget that stuff. They also don't know that he's the nephew of Nancy Pelosi, who was also running San Francisco and destroying California. But I digress. Yep. Here's an article about Gavin Newsom walking with more than a dozen members of the Young Global Leaders organization in San Francisco back in the day. Well, why are you bringing that up, Doug? Well, I'm going to lay out in this video too for you guys why the people in charge of California do not have loyalties to California. They have loyalties to programs that are subverting our constitutional republic. And do yourself a favor, spend a little time looking up the WEF and Young Global Leaders program. Because when the pandemic happened and I saw what was happening globally, I knew that they had all of their players in position, and now they would start ramping up their goals. Now, you also got to look at the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass. I found this interesting clip about Karen Bass.
November 7, 1983. Remember this date, but first, let me introduce you to Karen Bass. Back in the 1970s, community activist Karen Bass went on at least 15 trips to Cuba, many with a group known as the Venceremos Brigade, a Marxist group started by the Castro regime to subvert American interests, weaken democracies, and spread communism around the world. Founded in 1969, the Venceremos Brigade organized trips to Cuba every year for half a century. They attracted the most radicalized and delusional segments of the American left, including overtly Maoist and pro-Soviet communist groups. In fact, a Los Angeles police investigator who infiltrated the group testified to Congress saying that to be a member of the brigade, you had to be confirmed as a Marxist-Leninist. As a brigadista and then moving up the ranks to organizer for the Venceremos Brigade, Karen Bass visited Cuba every 6 months. Their mission? To radicalize young, impressionable American leftists in terrorist tactics and guerrilla warfare. Members of the Venceremos Brigade were even taught how to make bombs. Karen Bass admits, on her many pilgrimages to Cuba, she went to see Fidel Castro speak several times, even calling him charismatic. And upon his death, praised him, saying, "The passing of Commandant en Jefe is a great loss to the people of Cuba," even though the people of Cuba see him as a dictator who impoverished their island. Another group, the M19, took its belief in revolutionary anti-imperialism to extremes, violent extremes. The M19 was the first and only women-created and women-led domestic terrorist group. Since their founding in 1978, M19's tactics escalated from robbing armored trucks and abetting prison breaks to building their own explosives and carrying out terrorist bombings. From 1983 to 1984, M19 bombed an FBI office, the Israel Aircraft Industries building, the South African consulate in New York, DC's Fort McNair, and Navy Yard, which they bombed twice. But that wasn't enough for them. On the night of November 7, 1983, the M19 called the US Capitol switchboard and warned them to evacuate the building. Minutes later, the M19 bombed the north wing of the US Capitol. November 7, 2023 marks 40 years since the M19's bombing of the US Capitol. Members of the M19, like Susan Rosenberg, traveled to Cuba with and were radicalized by the Venceremos Brigade.
Great.
The South Los Angeles Vince Ramos Brigade was led by Karen Bass, who is now mayor of Los Angeles.
So now you see what I'm saying? They've made loyalties and oaths to other organizations that are out to subvert America. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but Karen Bass was slated to be the VP to Joe Biden. Whew. I dug up this old clip of Deborah Tavares, and she's talking about the plan to burn California. Folks, listen to this little bit of information and tell me what you think.
Right. Okay, so I'm here today because we received a media advisory of this meeting held in at the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors. And it says they invite community members to attend and provide input to guide post-fire recovery efforts at a workshop on infrastructure today, Tuesday, February the 27th, 2018. And there will be other local, state, and federal officials will be taking part as well. So they talk about the topics that will be discussed to include and prepare for a resilient city.
Did you hear Deborah talk about the 100 resilient cities? The Rockefellers. So all you have to do is just Google 100 resilient cities, and you can see a list of the cities that have already committed to this without even asking their constituents.
It's all about resiliency, fire safety, utility infrastructure, and strengthening and improving our community warning programs. So I want to go over some of the things that I heard in this meeting. It's very diabolical. All the perpetrators of this event are here. They're building up from a planned disaster by the use of directed energy weapons, which you can hear that interview in full by Googling the plan to burn up Northern California. And I am, of course, Deborah Tavares, and I do run the website stopthecrime.net, where you can find that plan to burn up Northern California as well. But the agenda here today by the perpetrators here in Northern California was to again discuss the community warning program, preparing for a more resilient county. Now, for many of you, I've reported on resilient cities. I would recommend that you go to the YouTube Kill Cities by Rothschild and Rockefeller to understand what resilient planning is all about in your town. And this is as a result of a weaponized weather assault. And that is now the new norm, increased weaponized weather assaults. We have been told that fire season in California will no longer be just a fire season as it had been in the past. It will be all year long. And we know certainly with the plan to burn up Northern California, how they're doing that with killing the trees, with all the toxins from the chemtrailing, the drought that they keep us perpetually in, and we're in a drought again right now.
Don't forget
So
the nutbag
thank you
arsonist.
so very much for listening and pass this information along far and wide. More importantly, I will leave you with this. We have primary water. We do not have a water shortage. This is the PSYOPs now being played out in Cape Town in South Africa. They've just extended the 0 day that they keep talking about, no more water. We discovered the PSYOPs being played here in Northern California in a town called Mountain House. Mountain House, about 4 years ago, was being shown throughout the United States as running out of water in 10 days. When our research team called some realtors in Mountain House, we discovered that they did not even know that their town was being used as a PSYOPs. So as we looked into it, we found that Mountain House was purchased by Sun Trust in the mid-90s. We researched Sun Trust, which was Rothschild. Mountain House was built as a UN Agenda 21 smart city, fully self-contained. It runs by CCNRs. It has a very peculiar city setup, and the financing for buying homes is through the USDA. And this was just really literally a town set up to create a PSYOPs on limited water resources. They got busted. So you need to understand, we don't have a water shortage. When you hear water shortages being discussed, you need to go out and get the information.
Getting into how they possibly could do it with DEW weapons, DEW, please Google that, or with smart meters. Hold on now. Did you know that California has a bunch of lawsuits already from people claiming and have evidence of smart meters catching fire on the sides of their homes?
Central Valley homeowners say there's a troubling cause of fires like this one, and it's not carelessness or negligence. They blame a device attached to thousands of homes, which is supposed to make tracking your energy usage easier for PG&E. 10 million homes in Central and Northern California have smart meters calculating electric bills.
In an Action News special assignment tonight, anchor Corin Hoggard investigated some fiery complaints about the device in Fresno County.
It can happen in a flash. Fiery videos posted to YouTube by several homeowners show fires they blame on smart meters. Valdez and his family ran out, and by that time, firefighters had already started pouring water on the house. He noticed several PG&E employees got there almost as quickly, and he says one of them removed the smart meter while the firefighters worked.
What?
Fireboss Fire Chief saw it too. He says he's never seen that before, but he thinks he knows why they may have wanted the device.
Investigation after the fire was put out revealed that in all probability the fire was caused by a problem in the electrical panel, and that problem in the electrical panel, in my belief, was the smart meter that was installed in the panel by PG&E.
Dozens of people have blamed smart meters for fires over the last several years, and the issue has been a topic of discussion for the California Public Utilities Commission. Jose Valdez isn't convinced. His insurance company is suing PG&E over the fire at his house, and they're not alone. A few months earlier, the same thing happened at this home in Kerman. Attorneys say electricity surged at the smart meter that was right here, and it caused a fire.
Active arcing going on, electrical activity happening with flames going up the side of the house.
Fresno firefighters put out the fire at the Sandoval home. Deputy Fire Marshal Don McAlpine says there's no clear evidence it started with a smart meter malfunction, but their investigation doesn't rule it out.
Yeah, this is a thing. Here's another clip of somebody at the fires who said she talked to the resident, and he said he does not have a smart meter on this one, but there was one on the back bungalow.
So I talked to the owner of this house right here in Pasadena. I talked to the owner. The owner does not have a smart meter on this house, on the front part of his house. There's no smart meter, no smart meter. So the house did not burn. The back house is the part of the house that had the smart meter, and everything in the back of his house is burnt. No smart meter, smart meter. No smart meter, nothing. Nothing's burned. Well, the trees, but the house state is perfectly fine. But the back house is completely gone. And that's
I mean, this just gets better and better, right? So now what we want to do is we want to look at PG&E, right? Pacific Gas and Electric, because, you know, they've had a lot of fires in California over the last bunch of years. Some of them have been highly suspect. So I did a little digging into PG&E, and you heard Deborah say who owned them. So listen, I know that was a little bit to chew on, but I just want you guys to know that nothing is happening organic, and nothing that you're seeing is incompetence, okay? These are very smart people who took a lot of time to plan all of this out. Please do not fall for the incompetence thing. All that is doing is to keep you frustrated and mad, thinking that it's incompetence, so you don't see that there's a bigger picture play going on here. So you just keep being the frog in the pot, and when you finally realize it, it's going to be too late. Share this video with your friends so they can see all these weird connections, and please understand that every day your life is going to get more difficult, especially here in America. Y'all, this is January 12th. We've had a truck bomb in front of the Trump. We've had another guy run into a crowd, get out, start shooting, and then he had pipe bombs inside of his truck. We've also had California catch on fire. I think Sir Walter Scott said it best. Oh, what tangled web we weave when first we practiced to deceive. Share this video with your friends. Make sure you're subscribed, because they're unsubscribing us. Did you know Karen Bass was a VP pick for Joe Biden? Did you know Karen Bass went to Cuba with this program and she's a Marxist, right? How come all these people that we're looking at have these Marxist connections, and why are they in our government? Man, that is a great question, especially here in America. And before we realize what's really going on, it might be.
Thank you to Off Grid with Doug and Stacy.com. Yeah, he made a very good point there. And I started off this show talking about the incompetence, right? And the people have been stupid people putting stupid people into tremendous positions of power. He called me out right there. He made a very valid point. Don't be sucked into that, talking about incompetence. This is a bigger picture thing. But I think it's been promoted. It has grown like a cancer because we have not gotten involved, because we stopped voting, because we said dumb things like, well, my vote doesn't count. You're right. Sure doesn't. Counts for the other side because they're using your vote because you didn't use it. Don't think that that's not going on. But he has a good point. Don't think that they're incompetent. This is all by design. This is not an accident. This is 15-minute smart city stuff. And they talked to you about the, covered a lot of things there, but look up 15-minute smart cities. I had somebody yesterday call me from SoCal. What's going on? You've been chosen. You've been chosen. You're going to get to be ground. And they got the Olympics. Olympics are coming back in 2028. They want to have their smart city, their 15-minute smart city up and thriving by then. And all the people who own the property that's been destroyed, good luck getting permits to rebuild. You're not going to get them. And there's all kinds of talk going on now that Newsom, even though this is not a state thing, however, there are state-owned and run entities in those areas where the fire has ravaged 100,000 buildings at least, murdered people, 150 to 200 billion dollars in damages. And they're talking about rezoning that area, not for single family, but for multifamily. Rezoning places like Palisades and so on. A lot of those rich people have owned those properties for years, or they paid cash for it outright. They've been there a long time. They got grandfathered in with the whole Prop 13 thing. They're not even paying that much in property taxes compared to what you would think. They're not. Get them out. Oh, you're a big-time celebrity, Tom Hanks? So? They're frickin' communists. They don't care. They want to destroy everything that makes the United States of America what it is. They want to destroy our history. They want to destroy our pride in being American. Never in my lifetime did I see that being a patriot would actually be a bad thing. There's something else I really wanted you to see, and this is not as long, but there's crucial information in this. Crucial information. Hold on a second. Let me get it. Yeah. Victor Davis Hanson. One of my heroes. One of my favorites. Man, I'd love to interview him. I have seen him speak. I did get to shake his hand one time. Big fan. Brilliant mind. Watch him dismantle what's been happening in Southern California with these fires. Victor Davis Hanson on Do Not Talk.
I would characterize it as a DEI, Green New Deal, hydrogen bomb. It's something out of Dante's Inferno. And what I mean by that is it's a systems breakdown, a civilizational collapse. When you look at the people in charge, Gavin Newsom flew in to sort of do these performance art stunts.
Really?
But he has systematically ensured that water out of the Sacramento River and the watershed of Northern California would go out to the sea rather than into the aqueduct. So Los Angeles didn't have sufficient amounts of water. He bragged not very long ago that he blew up 4 dams on the Klamath River. They provided 80,000 homes with clean hydroelectric power. They offered recreation, flood control, irrigation. He blew them up. California's fire management, whether we look at the Paradise Fire or the Aspen Fire near where I'm speaking, It destroyed 60 million trees. We have no timber industry in California. He's dismantled it. We don't clean the forest. We don't let loggers come in and have a viable livelihood by harvesting trees. It's sort of considered natural to let these things burn, or to at least create the conditions in which they will inevitably be burned. It's almost as we don't like humans. We worry about grubs and worms and birds in the ecosystem. Second breakdown was the mayor, Karen Bass, was in Africa. You tell me why the mayor of the third largest city in the United States at fire season, when she had been warned and warned for days on end that the Santa Ana winds were up to 100 miles an hour in the evening, and there was a danger of fire, and she goes off to Africa for the inauguration of the president of Ghana? With all due respect, Mayor Bob, who cares? You have an obligation to the 6 million people of greater Los Angeles. So, and then we have the fire chief. All I do care is her emphases. She's been bragging for the last 2 years that her goal was to make sure it was diverse and inclusive. That can be good if it's competent. But when you announce that 70% of your hiring will not be meritocratic, but will be based on diversity, equity, inclusion, then you're not putting the interest of your constituents first. There wasn't enough water pressure in Pacific Palisades. Pacific Palisades is not where I live. It's one of the wealthiest, most exclusive neighborhoods in the United States. If they don't have water, then no one's going to get water, believe me. There's not enough insurance. There were famous actors that didn't have insurance. Why? Because this industry is overregulated. It's fraught with people who make fraudulent claims, and the insurance industry knows that California is hostile to it, but more importantly, that it will never clean up its forest or take preventive, time-tried, ancient protocols to lessen the dangers of fire. And so put it all together, whether it's a deliberate policy to not store water, not preserve water. Last year was one of the wettest years that we've had. We've had 3 out of the last 4 years have been very, very wet. We had a huge snowpack. We had rivers that were running in 19th century fashion, but out to the sea to save the Delta smelt. So it was a total systems collapse, from the idea of not spending money on irrigation, storage, water, fire prevention, and forest management, a viable insurance industry, a DEI hierarchy. You put it all together, and it's something like a DEI Green New Deal. Gavin Newsom was fiddling it. He's almost Nero Newsom. And this has been something that is just unimaginable, this systems breakdown. And to finish, what we're seeing in California is a state with 40 million people. And yet the people who run it feel that it should return to a 19th century pastoral condition. They are de-civilizing the state and de-industrializing the state and de-farming the state, but they're not telling the 40 million people that their lifestyles will have to revert back to the 19th century, when you had no protection from fire, you didn't have enough water in California, you didn't have enough power, you didn't pump oil. So we are deliberately making these decisions not to develop energy, not to develop a timber industry, not to protect the insurance industry, not to protect houses and property. And we're doing it in almost a purely nihilistic fashion. And Karen Bass should resign. She came to the airport back from Africa. She had nothing to say. She was confronted at the airport. Why were you in Africa? Why did you cut the fire department? They cut the fire department by almost $18 million. They gave fire protective equipment to Ukraine's first responders. And she had nothing to say. She had nothing to say because she couldn't say anything. I don't want to be too pessimistic or bleak tonight, but this is one of the most alarming symptoms of a society gone mad. And if this continues, and if this were to spread to other states, we would become a third world country if we're not in parts already.
California has been trying for years to destroy Western civilization. Well, this is what it looks like. They finally did it. Primetime's calling for a federal takeover of California. When a state becomes this dangerous and the government becomes this reckless, where the lives of millions of American citizens are being destroyed, their homes obliterated, their infrastructure annihilated, look at what we're seeing. This is a war scene.
One of LA's wealthiest suburbs, in the grip of an inferno, raging and unremitting. Pacific Palisades is home to film stars and billionaires, but this is one of Mother Nature's terrifying levelers. People watch in disbelief, their community being ravaged. January isn't normally wildfire season, but these aren't ordinary conditions. Blazes fueled by the strongest winds here for decades.
This is surreal. This is unbelievable. I've never seen it like this. I grew up in the Palisades.
Are you worried about people being trapped in their homes?
Oh, absolutely. I've already watched most of my neighbors leave.
A chunk of land the size of San Francisco has been destroyed. Some of the most beautiful land in the world. Parts of Pacific Palisades look like Hiroshima after the atomic bomb.
Some of Hollywood's biggest stars have been caught up in the devastation of the Los Angeles wildfires. Many have watched as their homes burned and went up in flames. Hollywood Walk of Fame member Billy Crystal and his wife Janice have confirmed their home of nearly 5 decades has been destroyed. In a shared statement, the couple says, "Words cannot describe the enormity of the devastation we are witnessing and experiencing. We ache for our friends and neighbors who have also lost their homes and businesses in this tragedy." Emmy Award winner and comedian Eugene Levy evacuated the area, describing the smoke as very dark as he left. His home has been destroyed. Socialite Paris Hilton shared on social media that she's lost her Malibu home. "Heartbroken beyond words. Sitting with my family, watching the news, and seeing our home in Malibu burn to the ground on live TV is something no one should ever have to experience."
Thousands of Southern California residents have made harrowing escapes as devastating wildfires bear down on the Los Angeles area. Some fled by foot, some by car, and some by the grace of Good Samaritans. There are now 6 fast-moving wildfires raging around LA County, including the Pacific Palisades blaze and the Eaton fire in Altadena. The 6th fire, called the Sunset Fire, broke out last night in the Hollywood Hills area. Officials say the fires have killed at least 5 people and have burned down nearly 2,000 homes and structures, including ones owned by celebrities Billy Crystal, Mandy Moore, and Paris Hilton.
I talked to a fireman once. This is one of the reasons it freaked me out. He goes, "Dude, one day," he goes, "it's just going to be the right wind and fire's going to start in the right place and it's going to burn through LA all the way to the ocean and there's not a thing we can do about it." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, we just get lucky." He goes, "We get lucky with the wind." He goes, "But if the wind hits the wrong way, it's just going to burn straight through LA and there's not going to be a thing we can do about it."
A nightmare that no one can wake up from. That's what they're saying in LA.
As the fire absolutely raged, this is the view from the San Fernando Valley. This is what residents saw last night as mandatory evacuation orders were issued and folks in the Encino neighborhood south of Ventura Boulevard rushed to get out of their homes. The hills above Sherman Oaks, Encino, and Tarzana lit up with fire as that Palisades fire made its way to the ridge and began threatening homes on the other side again of Pacific Palisades. The aerial firefight we saw was intense. At one point, LA City Fire and assisting agencies had 10 water-dropping choppers and planes in the air, putting everything they had on this fire to stop it from moving into yet another densely packed residential area. Evacuation orders again were immediately issued, forcing thousands of people from their home. We saw them coming down Havenhurst, down Balboa, getting out of the area. Many of those folks this morning, including friends of ours, are staying in hotels and with family members. Evacuation centers have also been opened in the San Fernando Valley as the fire continues to spread. Now take a look at the Pacific Palisades side of the fire. Mandeville Canyon, the fire there also continuing to rage, and with only 11% containment this morning, this firefight is far from over. Now, yesterday, the folks who live in the hills in Encino, above, south of Ventura Boulevard, Encino Hills, Havenhurst, all of those streets right there, they have the fire burning right there on the ridge. But I want you to look at these pictures sent to us from Van Nuys. Hold one second. Take a look at those pictures sent to us from Van Nuys. This had folks 5 and 8 miles away from the actual ridge of the fire, worried that they too would have to evacuate. And a lot of folks in the San Fernando Valley have already been on edge. And one of the reasons is because of all those erroneous evacuation alerts they received. And yesterday, when they saw what we're looking at in those pictures right now, they worried they were going to have to get out, even though they were at least 8 miles from the ridge of the fire.
Even Morning Joe can't defend this. And they've defended everything. And I mean everything.
We don't know the exact causes for the complete failure of government to be able to protect these homes. I don't think we can say it's a smelt alone. We don't know what it is, but I do think it's going to be like Hurricane Katrina. I mean, the infrastructure has been slashed. It's hard to hear people say in one of the richest cities in the world that, we don't have enough water to protect people's homes.
We're witnessing the collapse of liberal society. Everything's on fire, falling apart at the same time because of stupidity, corruption, and radical priorities.
Just seeing your report there, Martha, really dramatic stuff. How are things where you are right now?
Terrifying for the people in this local area. I don't think that's an overstatement. It's a very long and scary night ahead for the people in this part of LA. You can see behind me one of these hills on fire. This was actually a community of temporary homes which have gone up, community after community here in flames. And I can't overstate also how much of a problem these winds are. Winds already 80 miles per hour. They're threatening to take my feet from under me. And they're expected to get even stronger in the coming hours, up to 100 miles per hour. And that's a problem because it means that these embers that you see, they may possibly spread and make another larger fire in these areas. So it is a very, very uncertain time, uncertain, scary hours ahead. 30,000 people have already been ordered to evacuate.
It's so big, it's so red. My thoughts and prayers are with everyone tonight. I'm really praying to stop soon.
I have never seen flames from my house like this, ever. This is insanity.
Incompetency. Like Doug and Stacy said, it's not that, don't be fooled. Bigger plan. The cabal. The Illuminati. All of Hollywood had to burn because the Epstein files were about to be released. Just on and on and on. Conspiracy. And frankly, at this point, I'm realizing it's all of the above. But there's ultimately something bigger. I'm going to talk to you very honestly now. And if you're not a believer, if you're not a follower of Christ Jesus, you're going to completely dismiss this immediately. As a matter of fact, you'll probably be hostile towards it. But I'm not going to stop talking about the love of Jesus, the plan of salvation through him, to be able to get back to what the Lord created us to be, and that is in communion with him, to be with him for eternity. in a way that our minds can't even fathom. But the people who are running this whole show are all still just doing one thing. They're working for one entity. And that is their father, who is the father of lies, who's here to steal, kill, and destroy. Wickedness personified. The devil himself. That's ultimately who's calling all the shots and making these things happen. Get in the book, please. Get into the Bible. You can't be fooled that way. You can't be fooled by some slick, skinny jean wearing, finely coiffed hairdo pastor who tells you what the Bible says for 22 minutes a week. And you're not reading it for yourself. You're going to be so easily fooled. And Jesus warned us in the last days that there will be many who will be trying to lead us astray. You can't be fooled when you read God's word for yourself. A chapter a day keeps false teachers away. It truly is that simple. Start in the New Testament. There's 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Start with the book of John if you don't want to read all 4 Gospels. And then just keep going all the way through Revelation. I do this thing called Godcast, where that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm reading through the New Testament. This is my 4th time going through, and we're almost done. We're up to Revelation chapter 12 now. So I'm going to do that right after this, as a matter of fact. But I wanted to share those things with you because of what's going on in Southern California. A lot of people are questioning what's happening. And the media seems to have dried up all of a sudden. Have you noticed? If you're still watching the mainstream media, and if so, I don't understand why. I don't know why you would, but if you still are, you've probably noticed it was like round-the-clock coverage, and then all of a sudden Karen Bass started looking like the horrible thing that she is, the mayor of LA. Governor Hairdo started looking like the horrible tool that he is. The fire chief, the assistant fire chief, all these people who we're trusting to protect us and to make sure everything's going to be okay are not. They're not making sure everything's going to be okay. So I wanted to share this with you. And thank you for the time. And thank you for supporting this show and this Facebook, on Facebook, on YouTube, also on Rumble. Excuse me. My apologies. Rumble.com/DoNotTalk. And you can help support my show and my efforts right here, my little ministry. Right there. That's the QR code. Right there. Just point your camera at that and it'll take you right to Venmo.com/DoNotTalk. Venmo.com/DoNotTalk. Help me stay on the air, please. Pray about it, but could use your help. Venmo.com/DoNotTalk. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America bless God